We want to care without coming undone. You give everything to your work, to the people around you, to what you're trying to build, and then the worry sets in. The fear that it might all go wrong, or the disappointment when it doesn't turn out the way you pictured. That tension, it feels like a problem we have now. But it's actually a very old one. Stoic philosophy has this central idea, this paradox. It says real strength is in caring deeply, but also in letting go completely. And that's not the same as not caring. It's a different kind of freedom, a freedom to be fully in it. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, he wrote this in his personal notes. He said we have to accept whatever happens as if we had chosen it ourselves, and at the same time we have to keep doing what's right. That's the balance. That's together. So the aim here is to end up with a way to approach things, a way to be fully engaged in life without being held hostage by the results. We'll look at these old principles, see how they can loosen the grip of our current anxieties, and maybe see why letting go, that act of release, might be the most caring thing you can do. What does it look like to be totally committed and yet completely at peace? Stoicism starts with a classification. It's a simple one, but it's brutal. And it's liberating. It draws a line through everything. It says, look, everything in your life falls into one of two categories. Some things are within your power, and some things are not. That's the bedrock. That's the dichotomy of control. It's not a suggestion. It's a map. The ancient teacher Epictetus put it with perfect clarity. He was born into hardship. In his handbook, he said our own actions are up to us. Our judgments are up to us. Our impulses, our desires, our aversions. Whatever is of our own doing, but then he lists what is not up to us. Our body is not up to us. Our property is not. Our reputation is not. Whatever is not of our own doing. It sounds stark, maybe even cold, but its purpose isn't to make us give up. Its purpose is to make us aim true. It's about focusing our care, our effort, with absolute precision. Right where it can actually be effective. That's the logical engine of the paradox. We're told to care deeply, to pour our entire being into that first list. Into our character, our judgments, our efforts, our integrity. Those are the things we own, and then we're told to let go completely of our frantic attachment to the second list. To the outcomes, the external events, the opinions of others, the final results. A job interview is the perfect illustration. You can care deeply about your preparation. You can research the company, practice your answers, choose your clothes with intention, get a good night's sleep. Those are your actions. They are within your sphere. You pour your care into them, but the moment you walk into that room, the outcome leaves your hands. The interviewer's mood, the other candidates, the final decision, the offer letter. Those are not within your sphere. To care about your preparation is wisdom. To be attached to the specific outcome is a recipe for anxiety, for desperation, for a feeling of personal failure if it doesn't go your way. The dichotomy teaches you to separate the two. It says, invest everything in the quality of your swing. But once the ball leaves the bat, you can't control the wind or the outfielder's leap. Your job is to run the bases. That's the foundational clarity. So take a moment, think of one thing you're worrying about right now, just one. Hold it in your mind and ask this simple, diagnostic question. Is this thing within my power or is it not? Is it my action, my judgment, my effort, or is it an outcome, an event, another person's choice? The classification itself is the first step toward a different kind of freedom. The obstacles in your path, maybe they're not setbacks, maybe they are the path. That's the next step, Amor Fati. It means the love of your fate, and this is where detachment becomes active. It becomes joyful. It's not just resignation, it's not a shrug, it's a wholehearted embrace. You look at reality exactly as it is, and you say, yes, this is the raw material I have. This is where I get to practice. Amor Fati changes letting go. It turns it from a feeling of loss into a gain. You care deeply about acting well right now. And that action includes accepting the present conditions completely. Marcus Aurelius kept returning to this. In his private writings, he reminded himself, "See the good in every event, welcome every experience, not as an interruption to the plan, but as the plan itself." Centuries later, Nietzsche took that Stoic idea. He called it his formula for human greatness, to not just bear what's necessary, but to love it. Think of Seneca. The emperor exiled him, sent him to a remote, rugged island. From the outside, it was a punishment, a disaster, but Seneca reframed it. He didn't see a tragedy, he saw an opportunity. In exile, he had quiet, he had space. He wrote some of his most enduring letters and essays. That work became a cornerstone of Stoic thought. It guided millions long after the emperor was forgotten. The obstacle became the path, so bring this down. Think of a recent inconvenience, a flat tire, a cancelled plan, a project at work that suddenly changed direction. Our first reaction is frustration. We see it as a wrench thrown in the gears. Amor Fati asks you to take a breath and reframe it. How could this be necessary? How could this, in some way you can't yet see, be beneficial for your growth? Maybe the flat tire forced a moment of quiet you needed. Maybe the cancelled plan opened an evening for a different connection. Maybe the changed project is pushing you to develop a skill you've been avoiding. This is the active side of letting go. It's not pretending something difficult is easy. It's deciding that whatever happens, you will find a way to work with it. You will care deeply about your response. And in that caring, you find a way to love the fact that this, right here, is what you have to respond to. It turns life from a series of things happening to you into a series of materials given to you, and your character is the craft. Desires are like a river. And Stoicism, it's not about stopping that river, it's about learning to redirect it. That's the discipline of desire. That's what makes the whole thing possible. You care deeply, but only about the right things. Everything else you let go. It starts with a distinction. The Stoics saw a real difference between a preference and a demand. A preference is natural. It's human to prefer health, to prefer success, to prefer comfort. There's no fault in that. The problem is when that preference hardens. When it becomes a rigid attachment, a silent command that things must be a certain way. That's where suffering lies, in that gap between what you prefer and what you demand. Seneca wrote about this. He talked about the difference between wishing for something and being enslaved by the wish. We should work for what we wish for, he said, but not beg for it. You can pursue your preferences, you can use all your energy and skill, but you can't chain your peace of mind to getting them. The moment a preference becomes a necessity, you hand over your freedom. You give the outside world a remote control to your inner state. So detachment isn't about wanting nothing. It's about releasing the grip of those silent demands. It's redirecting the river of your care away from uncontrollable outcomes toward the one thing you truly own, your own virtue, your own action. Take a modern desire. The desire for recognition at work. You pour yourself into a project, you stay late, you refine every detail. The natural preference is for your manager to notice, for your colleagues to applaud. There's nothing wrong with that hope, but the discipline asks you to look at where you're placing the weight of your care. Are you caring deeply about doing excellent, principled work? That's within your control. That's the virtue of the effort. Or are you caring deeply about receiving public praise? That's outside your control. That's the external outcome. The Stoic approach is to redirect the full force of your care into the quality of the work itself. To find the satisfaction in the craft, in the problem solved, in the integrity of the effort. You can still hope for the recognition. You can work to communicate your contributions. But you soften the demand. You release the attachment to that particular outcome. If the praise comes, it's a welcome addition. If it doesn't, your peace isn't shattered. Your worth wasn't stored in someone else's opinion. It was secured in your own action. So here's a question. What's one desire you're currently treating as a demand? Not just a quiet hope, but a thing you feel you must have for things to be okay. Maybe it's a specific result in a relationship, or a financial goal by a certain date, or a particular reaction from someone you respect. How can you begin to soften it? How can you turn that rigid demand back into a simple, flexible preference? This is the quiet work, the daily work of redirecting the river. It's how you build the strength to care about what matters without being broken by what doesn't. Marcus Aurelius had this daily exercise, the view from above. It's a way to create distance, a step back in your mind. You're in a hard conversation, your heart's pounding, your thoughts are a knot. The practice tells you to pause, then to pull your perspective up, out, see the room from the ceiling, then see the building from the sky, then the city, the country, the whole planet turning in the quiet of space. It's not about making your problem small, it's about seeing its actual scale. Marcus wrote to himself, remember how tiny the slice of time you get is. Remember the depth of the past, the future. Against that, this moment of friction, this current worry, how big does it seem? The practice is a tool. It helps you let go of that overwhelming personal story. The story that screams this is everything, that this is what defines you. The view from above answers quietly. It shows you the bigger picture, the huge flow of time, all the other lives, nature's endless cycles. Your concern doesn't disappear, but it's placed. It's given a context so vast that its power to overwhelm you just shrinks. So take a personal conflict. You feel hurt by something a friend said. The feeling is hot, it's right there. Now take the view. Imagine you're a neutral person watching the two of you talk from across the room. What do you see? Two people, each with their own history, their own pains, maybe just misunderstanding each other. Now pull the perspective further. Imagine looking back at this moment from a year from now. Will that comment still feel like a wound, or will it be a footnote, something forgotten in the long story of your friendship? That distance creates objectivity. It takes the frantic urgency out of the situation. It lets you care about the relationship, about acting with integrity, without being taken over by the raw feeling of the moment. You care for the person, but you let go of the tight grip of the incident. Next time a strong feeling comes up, try it. Before you react, take one step back in your mind. Ask, how does this look from a month away, from a year, from the quiet view of the stars? It's a simple shift, but in that space between the feeling and the action, you find the freedom to choose your response. You find that calm center where deep care meets a complete peace. Stoics work on their ability to care by thinking about loss. It seems backward to consider what you might lose so you can value what you have more. That's Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of troubles, and it's the clearest form of that paradox. It means caring so much that you're willing to face impermanence directly. To build a gratitude that's resilient, that doesn't break when things change. This isn't pessimism, it's not expecting the worst, it's a kind of mental inoculation. By picturing the loss of what we cherish, our health, our relationships, our comforts, we do two things at once. We jolt ourselves into a sharp, immediate appreciation for what we have right now. And we rehearse for reality. We lessen the terror, the paralyzing shock if life ever does take something away. We've already visited that possibility in our minds. We've already felt the sting, and in doing that, we've loosened its hold on us. Seneca was a master of this. He told his friends to set aside days to practice poverty, to wear rough clothes, to eat simple food, to remember that the things we depend on are only on loan. He wrote to a grieving mother not to ignore her pain, but to remember that all mortal things are a gift for a time, not a possession forever. By thinking about exile, he said, we learn to love our home not as a permanent right, but as a current, precious shelter. This mental rehearsal takes the future's power to ambush us away. It lets us care for our home, our health, our loved ones with a fierce, present joy, exactly because we know it isn't guaranteed. So how do you practice this without falling into fear? You keep it small and you keep it brief. It's a conscious, gentle exercise in awareness. Here's a simple way to start. The next time you hug someone you love, let the thought cross your mind just for a second. This person is mortal. This moment is finite. Don't dwell on it. Don't let it become a dark cloud. Just let it be a quiet recognition. Feel how that tiny, sobering thought immediately intensifies the hug. It makes your arms tighten just a little more. It makes you present completely in that embrace. That's Premeditatio Malorum in action. It's using the shadow of loss to light up the substance of what you have. Now bring this to your own life. What's one thing you're genuinely grateful for today? It could be something as simple as the warmth of your bed this morning, the function of your body, the presence of a pet, the quiet of your morning coffee. Hold that thing in your mind, feel the gratitude for it. Now imagine life without it for just a moment, not with drama but with calm clarity. If that comfort, that presence was gone tomorrow, how would you feel? And then bring your attention back. It is here now. How does that brief journey change the quality of your gratitude? It probably deepens it. It moves it from a passive fact to an active, felt experience. This is how we care through preparedness. We love more fully not by ignoring fragility, but by acknowledging it. And in that acknowledgement, we find a steadier, more enduring kind of love. What if your worth wasn't tied to your money, your job, or your status? Stoicism says it isn't. It redefines what matters. For a Stoic, the only real good is a virtuous character. Wisdom, courage, justice, temperance. Everything else, your health, your wealth, your reputation, that's in a different category. Those things are preferred or dispreferred, but they aren't good or bad themselves. They're just the material, the stuff you use to practice virtue. That idea is the core of the whole thing. It's why you can let go of everything outside yourself without becoming indifferent. Because you've put all your care into the one thing that can't be taken, your moral purpose. Your character is your only true possession. Epictetus put it simply. You are not your body or your property or your reputation. Those things are not you. They're on loan. What's truly yours, he said, is your ability to use impressions. Your judgment, your choice to act with honor. Fortune can't touch that. A storm can sink your ship, but it can't sink your integrity. A critic can slander your name, but they can't make you act unjustly. That focus makes the self unassailable. Think of two people facing the same business failure. The first person tied their whole identity to the venture's success. To them, the business was a reflection of their soul. When it fails, they're shattered. They feel like a failure. Their world collapses because their good was stored in an external outcome. The second person cared just as deeply. They worked tirelessly with passion and intelligence, but they defined success differently. Their main goal was to act with integrity. To deal fairly, to face risks with courage, to learn with wisdom. When the business fails, they feel the loss. They preferred it to succeed, but their core, their sense of self, stays intact. They can look back and say, I acted with virtue. I did my best with the circumstances. That is a loss I did not suffer. That person is resilient. They can grieve the preferred outcome and still stand firm. Already looking for how to practice virtue in the next chapter. That's the ultimate object of caring deeply. You pour your entire being not into building a perfect life, but into building a virtuous character. The life you build with that character becomes the result, the secondary, beautiful result. So here's something to consider. Think of a recent difficulty, big or small. In the heat of it, where was your focus? Was it almost entirely on the outcome, on what you wanted to avoid or achieve, or was there a part of you anchored in how you wanted to act through it? What would shift if next time you focused solely on the latter, on asking, what would a wise, courageous, just temperate person do right now? your actions might look very similar. But your inner world would feel entirely different, unshakable, because its foundation is finally in the right place. You know that feeling when a criticism just lands and it ruins your whole day. Or a compliment comes and suddenly everything's brighter, that immediate reaction. It feels so personal. We've wired our sense of worth to something outside ourselves. Someone's approval or disapproval, it flips a switch inside. Stoicism suggests a different power source. It asks you to care so deeply about acting rightly that the opinions of others become just data. Interesting, maybe, but never the final verdict on your worth. Letting go of that emotional weight, that's what creates a real stability. Marcus Aurelius, he was the most powerful man in his world. And he constantly reminded himself of this. He wrote that the applause of a crowd is just a clapping of hands. The opinions people hold, they're just the thoughts in their heads. He told himself to retreat into his own inner citadel, that quiet, fortified place inside where his own reason and virtue were the only judges that mattered. He knew public opinion was a fickle wind, changing direction without warning. To build your home in that wind is to live in constant, anxious renovation. This isn't about becoming arrogant or dismissive. It's about changing what you listen for. You can care deeply about whether your action was just or wise or kind. That's your internal standard. The criticism or praise that comes afterward, that's external feedback. You can examine it calmly. Is there useful truth here? Does it point to a way I could act more virtuously next time? If so, you learn from it. If it's just noise, just someone's passing mood or projection, you let it pass by. Your emotional center doesn't have to go with it. Think of an artist, a writer, a musician. They care deeply about their craft. They pour their soul into the message, the technique, the feeling they want to convey. That's their virtuous action, the integrity of the creative effort. Then they release the work. It might become a viral sensation, praised everywhere. It might be ignored. It might be sharply criticized. The Stoic creator learns to hold those outcomes lightly. The praise feels nice, but it doesn't define the work's true value, which was secured in the doing. The criticism might sting, but it doesn't erase the virtue of the dedicated effort. Their stability comes from knowing they were true to their internal standard. The rest is weather, so bring this into your own world. Can you think of a time you adjusted your behavior primarily for praise or to avoid blame? Maybe you stayed silent in a meeting when you had a contrary idea because you didn't want to rock the boat. Maybe you overstated your agreement on a topic just to fit in. In that moment, your guide was external, the anticipated reaction of others. Now, reimagine that moment. What would your action have looked like if it were guided only by your principles, by the internal virtues of courage to speak a thoughtful truth, or of justice to represent an honest perspective? The action itself might have been the same, or it might have been different, but the feeling inside you would have been entirely distinct, not one of anxious calculation but of grounded integrity. That shift from external meter to internal compass, that's the essence of this practice. It's how you care for your character so completely that the noise of the world simply loses its power to disrupt you. The past is a ledger. You can read it, but it's not meant to be carried. That's the final piece of the paradox. To care about the life you're in, you have to let go of the one that's already happened. The past is fixed. You can't control it, and Stoicism handles it in 2 steps. First, you mine it for wisdom. You care about the lesson. Then you release the emotional weight. You let go of the event itself because it's done. Seneca saw how foolish it is to carry that. He wrote about how we compound our troubles. We're often made miserable now, he said, by remembering a past misery. We aren't just hurt once, we're hurt again and again by our own minds choosing to go back to the pain. He asked a sharp question. What's the point of dragging up sufferings that are over? Of being unhappy now because you were unhappy then? The event can't be changed, but your relationship to it, that is entirely in your power. Marcus Aurelius used the image of a flowing river. Time is a river of passing events, and no sooner does a thing appear than it's swept away. Another comes, and it too will be swept away. To cling to a moment that's already passed downstream is to fight the current of reality itself. You can remember the moment, you can learn from the shape it left on the bank, but you cannot hold the water. So how does this work in a real life? Take a common regret. A career opportunity you didn't take, a harsh word spoken in anger to someone you loved, a financial mistake. The natural, unexamined reaction is to keep that moment alive. To replay the scene, feeling the shame or the longing all over again. It becomes a story you tell yourself about who you are. I'm the person who failed. I'm the person who hurt them. That story becomes a weight you carry forward. It bends your posture. It limits your stride. The Stoic approach is to separate the lesson from the lament. You look at that past event with clear eyes. You ask, what did this teach me? In the missed opportunity, maybe it taught you to be more decisive when passion calls. In the harsh word, it taught you the lasting impact of speech and the value of patience. In the financial misstep, it taught you the principles of better planning. You care deeply about pulling out that wisdom. You write it in your ledger. That's the productive work. That's how the past serves the present. Then you close the ledger. The event itself, the immutable fact of it, you set down. You accept it as part of the river's flow. The shame, the lingering resentment toward yourself, that's the extra weight. It's the lodestone, and you have permission to put it down. You are not dishonoring the lesson by releasing the pain. You are honoring the lesson by using it instead of being haunted by it. So here's a reflective prompt. Identify one regret you often revisit, one piece of past baggage that feels heavy. Hold it for a moment. Now ask, what lesson did that experience contain? What single piece of wisdom did it force you to learn? Name it. Write it down if you need to. That lesson is yours to keep. It's the value. Now look at the heavy feeling, the shame or the sadness around the event itself. Can you, having learned what you needed to learn, mentally set that regret down? Can you place it back in the river, acknowledging it happened, but letting it continue flowing away from your present moment? That's the art, to read the ledger of your life with care and to walk forward unburdened by its weight. We mortgage the present to a future that isn't here. It's a quiet tax. You're here, but your mind is out there, years ahead, playing out things that may never happen. This is the final piece of the paradox. Detachment from that future anxiety. The Stoic answer is simple. Plan with wisdom, then release the worry. Epictetus gave the diagnosis. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. You inflict the pain twice, once right now with the fearful story you're telling yourself, and then maybe, just maybe, once more if the event actually happens. But that second suffering is in the future. It's not here. You have no guarantee it will ever arrive. By worrying now, you're choosing to pay the price for a disaster that may never be delivered. That draws the line. Planning is wise. It's within your control. It's the act of caring about your future well-being. You research, you save, you learn, you build skills. That is virtuous action. Anxiety is the endless mental rehearsal of disaster. It's attachment to a specific, fear-based outcome that is not within your control. That is where you let go. Take financial security. Caring deeply means you create a budget. You educate yourself on sensible investing. You build an emergency fund. You act with temperance and foresight today. That is your sphere. Letting go means you do not then sit up at night, your mind racing through catastrophic market crashes 20 years from now. You do not obsess over retirement scenarios you can't possibly predict. You've done your prudent work. The future markets, the global economy, the exact number in your account decades from now, those are not within your sphere. To cling to them is to suffer in imagination. It's to sacrifice the calm of your present moment for a phantom. The practice is to trust your future self. To trust that the person you are becoming, the person practicing reason and virtue right now, will be equipped to handle whatever comes. You are not preparing to control the future. You are preparing your character to meet it. Seneca said we are often troubled by things that never happen. The Stoic asks, why should I punish myself today for a tomorrow that may hold something entirely different? So bring this to your own life. What is your most common future fear? A health concern for a loved one, the stability of your career in a changing world. A relationship that feels uncertain. Hold that fear gently. Now ask the question, is this within my control right now? Can I act on it today? If you can, if there's a prudent, wise action to take, then take it. That is your care, that is your investment. If there is no action to take, if the event is entirely in the realm of the not yet and the unknown, then you have a different task. The task of conscious release. Can you, just for today, set down the repetitive worry? Can you notice the story your mind is spinning, acknowledge it, and then gently return your attention to what is real, what is present, what is actually yours to shape in this hour? This is not a denial of possibility. It is a reclaiming of your current life. It is choosing to stop paying interest on a loan the future may never call due. The ancient Stoics had this mental hack, a two-word phrase. They called it the reserve clause. You add it to any goal. I will do my best, fate permitting. That's the whole thing. Those two words hold the paradox. You care deeply and you let go completely. You state your intention with full force, and in the same breath, you admit the final result isn't yours to command. Epictetus talked about this all the time. He told his students to undertake every action but leave the outcome to Zeus, to nature, to the way things are. He said, go to the bath wishing to bathe, but hold that wish lightly. If someone jostles you or pours water or shouts, you won't be frustrated. You wished to bathe and nature permitted it. But nature also permitted the interruption. Your wish was conditional from the start. This wasn't about being passive. It was about being prepared. It built acceptance right into the effort. Think of an athlete training for the Olympics. Their commitment is absolute. Every morning, every meal, every repetition is an act of profound care. They pour their soul into the process. That's the I will do my best part, but they also know 1,000 things can happen. An injury, a bad day, a competitor having the race of their life. The weather, the judging, so they hold the specific outcome, winning the gold with an open hand. That's the fate-permitting part. They don't train any less hard. They might train harder with more clarity because their focus is pure. It's on the excellence of their swing, not on the uncontrollable wind. If they win, they receive it. If they don't, their peace isn't shattered. Their worth wasn't stored in a podium. It was in the integrity of the daily grind. This clause changes how you approach anything. You're launching a creative project. You say, I will pour my heart into this book, this album, this business, fate permitting. You're entering a relationship. I will be open, honest, and loving, fate permitting, working toward a promotion. I will develop the skills and deliver the results, fate permitting. The magic is in the order. You lead with your wholehearted action. The clause comes after. It doesn't weaken your resolve, it fortifies it. It frees you from that desperate, clinging energy that sabotages effort. You act not from a place of lack, needing this specific outcome to be okay, but from a place of abundance, choosing to express your virtue regardless. So try it. Think of one goal, big or small. State it clearly, then add the clause out loud. I will work to achieve this, fate permitting. You might feel a slight release of pressure. A subtle unclenching. That's the grip of attachment loosening. That's not your care leaving. That's the anxiety around the outcome leaving. What remains is a cleaner, sharper focus on what you can actually do. The effort itself becomes the point. The destination becomes a welcome possibility, not a demanded necessity. Holding someone's hand without putting them in a cage, that's the paradox. To love deeply is to see the other person clearly, not as a character in your story, not as a solution to loneliness, but as a complete world walking beside you. They have their own mind, their own path, their own mortality. Stoic love asks you to care for that world fiercely, while letting go of the need to own it or make it permanent. Seneca's letters on friendship get to the core. He wrote that we should want a friend for their own sake, not for what they can do for us. Not for utility or comfort, just for the fact of who they are. When you love someone for their own sake, your care isn't conditional. It isn't about them fulfilling a role. It's a gift given freely. That kind of love doesn't cling. It appreciates. It celebrates the other person's autonomy, even when their choices aren't what you'd prefer. Epictetus offered a harder preparation. He told his students, when you kiss your child or your spouse, remind yourself silently that this person is mortal. They are here on loan. That isn't meant to create distance or fear. It's meant to create presence, to jolt you into loving the actual person in front of you right now, not the idea of them you're holding for the future. By accepting impermanence, you love more fully in the present. You stop taking them for granted. You can see the contrast in a partnership. Possessive jealousy says, "You are mine, and your attention must prove it." That love is a demand. It builds a cage of expectations and surveillance. Secure love, the Stoic kind, says, "I choose you, and I will act with loyalty and kindness." But you are free. Your thoughts, your friendships, your inner life are your own. This love is an offering. It builds a garden where both people can grow. The first is rooted in fear of loss, the second in gratitude for connection, or a parent's love. The anxious parent is attached to specific outcomes, this career, this lifestyle, this version of happiness for their child. Their guidance comes from a place of control, from fear that a wrong turn leads to ruin. The love is real, but it's mixed with a demand that the child's life conform to a blueprint. The parent practicing detachment cares just as deeply. They guide, they teach principles, they share wisdom, but they let go of the need for the child to walk an exact, predetermined path. They love the person the child is becoming, not just the person they hoped they would be. Their peace isn't shattered by every unexpected choice because their love wasn't conditional on that specific road. So here's a quiet question. In your closest relationship, is there an aspect where you're clinging or trying to control? It might be subtle. A silent expectation that they always cheer you up. A frustration that they don't share your hobbies. A worry that their choices don't mirror your values perfectly. Can you identify that demand? And then, can you practice, even just for today, loving the person without it? Can you see them in this moment as they truly are autonomous, imperfect, mortal, and holy themselves, and let your care exist without that string attached? That's the practice of the open hand. That flash of heat when someone cuts you off, that curse, that's attachment. It's a protest, a scream inside that the world isn't following your script. That driver should be courteous. The universe should line up with your plan. Anger comes from that gap, from a rigid demand about how things ought to be, hitting the wall of how they are. Seneca wrote a whole work called On Anger. He called it a brief insanity, a temporary madness. It comes from one mistaken judgment, the judgment that something was taken from you that you were owed. Your peace, your respect, your smooth drive, but here's the Stoic turn. No outside event can take your peace. You can only give it up by deciding this event is so wrong, so offensive, that you have to set yourself on fire in response. Detachment is the antidote. It doesn't mean you don't care about justice or safety. You can care deeply. You can take calm, wise action for those things. But you let go of the demand that this person right now has to act by your rules. You separate the event, the car swerving, from the story you put on it. The story that says this is a personal insult, a sign of a disrespectful world. That story is the fuel. The event is just metal moving a certain way. Take a common modern irritant. Your flight is delayed for hours, the gate is crowded and tense. The attached response builds a story of injustice. The airline should be competent. My time should be respected. This shouldn't be happening to me. Each should is a log on the fire. The frustration grows, tightens your chest, ruins your afternoon. The detached response starts with a simple fact. The flight is delayed. That's the reality. The judgment that this is unfair, a personal inconvenience, that's optional. It's an interpretation you're choosing to add. You can care about getting home. You can politely ask for information. Look at other options. Use the time to read or rest. Those are actions you control. The mechanical issue, the airline's logistics, the weather, you don't. By dropping the demand that reality be different, you drain the anger. You're no longer fighting a ghost, the version of today where everything went right. You're dealing with the actual day you have. So here's a challenge. Next time you feel that heat start to rise, in a long line at a thoughtless comment when plans fall apart, pause just for a breath. Ask yourself a quiet question. What unspoken demand am I making right now? What silent should is being broken? Is it that people should be more efficient? That others should read my mind? That the world should have no obstacles? See if you can find it. And then, see if you can, just for this one time, choose to drop it. Not the principle. Not the preference for things to be better, but the rigid, internal command that it must be so. When you let that demand go, you're not saying the behavior is okay. You're not becoming a doormat. You're just refusing to let another person's action or a random event decide your inner weather. You care about what you can do. And you let go of the exhausting project of trying to command the world to obey. You're looking at the device you're watching this on. Do you own it, or are you just the person using it right now? That's really what Stoicism gets at with material things. It makes a clear distinction between using something and owning it. You can use a thing, you can appreciate it. You can take care of it without letting it become part of who you are. The object is on loan from fortune. You're just looking after it for a while. That change in view, that's how you use the world without it using you. Musonius Rufus taught simple living. He said the things you actually need to live are very few. Shelter, basic clothes, simple food, everything else is extra. Not necessarily bad, just extra. The issue isn't having nice things, it's believing you need them to be happy. Or that they're a permanent part of you. Epictetus took that idea further. He told his students to handle every cup, every piece of pottery, as if it were already broken. Not carelessly, but with the awareness that it's fragile. You enjoy the cup while it's whole. You drink from it with gratitude, but you hold it knowing its time like this is limited. That mental preparation removes the shock when it eventually chips. The cup was always a temporary guest in your hand. Marcus Aurelius did this constantly. He'd look at the precious things in the palace, the jewels, the fine materials, and he'd say to himself, "See these for what they are. A stone is just a stone. Silk is just the work of worms. The purple dye in a robe is just shellfish juice." He wasn't dismissing their beauty. He was stripping away the story. The inflated value we give things through status and desire. He was seeing the raw material, which comes from the world and goes back to it. You see the contrast in daily life. One person buys a luxury watch. For them, it's not just a timepiece. It's a symbol of success, a marker of identity. They worry about scratches. They feel a boost when others notice it. Their mood is tied to it being on their wrist. If it's lost, it feels like a piece of them is gone. Their peace is held hostage by an object. Another person might have the same watch or a simple one. They enjoy its craftsmanship, they appreciate its reliability, they care for it so it lasts, but they see it as a tool, a beautiful, functional tool for telling time. Its value is in its use, not in what it says about them. If it were gone tomorrow, they'd feel the practical loss, the annoyance of replacing it. but their sense of worth, their inner balance would stay intact. It was a useful guest that departed. Their home, their character, is still standing. That's the practice. Good stewardship without attachment. You care for your possessions because that's wise and responsible. You don't waste, you maintain, you use things well, but you don't cling. You hold them with an open hand, knowing they are visitors in your life, not permanent residents. So here's a prompt. Choose one prized possession, your phone, a piece of jewelry, a car, a favorite jacket. Hold it or just bring it to mind. Now practice the thought. This is not mine, it is of the world. I am its current curator. I enjoy its utility and its beauty now, but I do not cling to it. I will care for it while it's here, and I will release it when it's time for it to go. Feel the subtle shift that happens when you think this way. It's not a loss of enjoyment, it's a gain of freedom. Where are your thoughts right now? Are they here or are they somewhere else? The present moment is the only place where detachment happens. It's the only place your will can actually work. The past is just a memory. The future is a projection. But right now, this breath, this feeling, this thing in front of you, that's the only real territory you have. Caring deeply and letting go completely aren't separate things. They're two movements of the same mind happening right here. Full engagement with your present task is the highest form of caring, and releasing your grip on thoughts of the past and future is the essential act of letting go. They're two sides of the same coin. You can't really do one without the other. If you're mentally replaying an old argument while trying to work, you're not caring for your work. And you're not letting go of the past. You're stuck in a nowhere land, serving neither thing. Marcus Aurelius drilled this into himself. He wrote about concentrating every minute like a Roman. Doing what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness. He told himself to stop letting his mind be a slave, to be satisfied if he could just live the life in front of him, the one he was actually living with some degree of justice. His entire philosophy was a return ticket to the present, purchased over and over. Seneca said it from a different angle. He argued life is long enough if you know how to use it. The tragedy is we waste so much of it. We're not present for our own lives. We postpone living. We wait for some future condition to be met, and in that waiting, we let our days drain away. Being present is how we reclaim the length of our time, the depth of it. Take a simple act, reading a story to a child. Caring deeply in that moment means your entire being is immersed. You're feeling the rhythm of the words, watching their eyes widen at the pictures, matching your tone to the drama of the plot. Your care is the quality of your presence. Letting go in that same moment means you're not thinking about the work email. You're not mentally rehearsing tomorrow's meeting. You're not attached to the child falling asleep on time. You release those concerns to be fully in the shared experience. The caring and the letting go fuel each other. Your presence is the gift. This is the practice. It's not a grand abstraction. It's a minute-by-minute return. So try a concrete exercise. Set a timer for 2 minutes. For that brief span, focus completely on one thing. Your breath moving in and out, or the sensation of your feet on the floor, or the detailed shape of an object in front of you. Your only task is to keep your attention there. You'll notice almost immediately that your mind wanders. It'll dart to a conversation from yesterday. It'll leap to a worry about next week. This isn't failure. This is the work. Each time you notice it has wandered, gently, without judgment, bring it back to the breath, the sensation, the object. That noticing and returning, that's the entire practice. That's you in real time, choosing to care for your attention in the present and letting go of the pull of every other time. In that small, quiet space, the whole paradox breathes. Stoicism gets misunderstood. People think it means not feeling anything, but it has a very specific view on loss, on the pain of losing someone you love. It draws a line. There's the natural human ache, the sadness of absence, and then there's the second thing, the storm we build on top of that first ache. The first grief is just affection. It's the proof you cared. It's the quiet space where a person was. Stoicism sees that as honorable. It's the tender part of love. The second layer is different. It's the protest, the constant rehearsal of why me, the story that your life is ruined now, that happiness is impossible. The belief that this pain defines you forever, that's where the extra suffering lives, and that's what Stoicism asks you to let go. Seneca wrote to a woman named Marcia. Her son had died. He didn't tell her to stop crying. He didn't say her feelings were wrong. He acknowledged the wound. He allowed for tears, but then he pointed to a shift. He argued against a sorrow that goes on forever, a self-indulgent grief that forgets the duty to the living. He wrote that while we mourn what's gone, we can't act as if nothing is left. To grieve without end dishonors the memory. It suggests they would want your light to go out too. The goal isn't to erase sadness, it's to stop it from hardening. From becoming a permanent despair that claims your whole identity, you can see the contrast in two responses to a deep loss. One person gets consumed by the if-only stories. By bitterness about the world's unfairness, they retreat from life. They believe joy would be a betrayal. Their grief becomes a monument, and every day is a ritual of tending to that monument. The sadness gets compounded by loneliness, by a story of permanent damage. Another person feels the deep, wrenching sorrow. They miss the presence acutely. They honor the memory with tears and stories, but they don't build a story of injustice around it. They accept the terrible fact as part of life's fragile contract. Gradually, almost without noticing, they start to re-engage with life's duties, to care for others who are still here, to find moments of beauty or connection. Not as a replacement, but as a continuation of the love they felt. Their sadness remains, but it doesn't drown everything else. It becomes a quiet companion. Not a prison, the practice is in the separation. It's feeling the pure missing without layering on the story of a ruined future. It's acknowledging the thought, I wish they were here, without following it with, and so my life has no meaning now. If you've experienced a loss, there's a gentle question. Can you separate the pure sadness of missing someone from the stories you've attached to it? The stories of injustice or permanence. Can you feel the ache of absence and just let it be an ache, without building a fortress of why around it? This isn't a demand to feel differently. It's an invitation to see what's actually there. The love is real. The pain of that love is real. The added story that this pain must define all your days, that's the layer you can soften. And in time, release. The Stoics had this idea of an inner fortress, something unassailable. Every person has one. External events are like a siege. Your judgments are the gatekeepers. They called it the inner citadel. It's the sovereign space of your mind, your reason, your moral purpose. Nothing from outside can get in unless you let it. That's the core of it. Detachment is the act of retreating to that space, defending it, and caring deeply means fortifying it. You build the walls with virtue, with clarity, with courage, with justice. You stock it with self-knowledge. You make it a place of order, a place of strength. Letting go completely means you stop trying to defend the territory outside. You don't waste your garrison fighting out in the open field of events. You let the siege engines of fortune just rumble outside. Praise, blame, loss, gain. They can make noise, they can shake the ground, but they can't breach the gates. Not unless you open them. Your peace is held securely inside. Marcus Aurelius returned to this image constantly. In his private writings, he spoke of retreating into this little plot of ground within himself. He called his ruling faculty the only thing that needed protection. He wrote that you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize that, and you find strength. The entire project was about safeguarding that inner sovereignty. Take a modern scenario, public humiliation. Say someone spreads a damaging rumor about you online. Your reputation, your social standing, those are external. They exist in the minds of others, in the digital record. The attack is on that outer territory. The attached, undisciplined response is to let that attack inside. To believe the lie, to internalize the shame, to let it dictate your worth, that's opening the gates. The invader is in your citadel then, burning your peace. The Stoic response is to recognize the attack for what it is, an external event. You can care deeply. You can act with integrity to correct the record if you can. You can choose your conduct with wisdom, but you do not grant the rumor entry into your inner judgment of yourself. Your inner citadel remains occupied by your self-knowledge. Your knowledge of your own actions, your own character, that space is untouched. The noise is outside the walls. Your peace is intact because it was never stored in public opinion to begin with. It was secured within. How you make your mind bulletproof. You use blanks sometimes. The Stoics had a name for it: voluntary discomfort. It's like a gym for the whole paradox. You give up a comfort on purpose for a little while, not to punish yourself, but to prove something, to show yourself through experience that your peace, your well-being, your joy doesn't actually depend on that thing you're letting go. You care about your comfort, and then you let it go completely for a short time to see what's left. What's left is you, and that finding makes you stronger, more resilient, less anxiously attached to the conditions around you. It lets you care about the world without that hidden fear of losing it. Musonius Rufus was a big advocate for this hard training. He taught that comfort makes the soul soft, difficulty makes it strong. He wasn't preaching a life of constant hardship, but a life of practiced readiness. He said by occasionally experiencing want, by choosing it, we take away the fear of it. We learn we can endure, that our character can still shine even when the body's a little cold or a little hungry. Seneca did the same thing. He would practice poverty periodically, set aside days to wear rough clothes, eat plain food, sleep on a hard bed. He wrote that he was preparing his soul for whatever fortune might bring, proving to himself that his happiness was an internal state, not an external circumstance. This practice isn't asceticism for its own sake, it's inoculation. You expose yourself to a small, controlled dose of discomfort, so if a larger dose ever comes, you're not taken by surprise, you're not paralyzed by the shock. You've already been in that territory and found your footing, so what does it look like now? The principles are timeless, but the comforts have changed. A modern voluntary discomfort might be a cold shower instead of a hot one, not for a health trend, but for the mental exercise, to feel the initial shock and then find your breath. To choose calm inside the sensation. It could be fasting for one meal, not for weight loss, but to feel the hunger and see that your mind can still think clearly, your heart can still be kind. It could be choosing to walk somewhere you'd normally drive, feeling the weather, accepting the slower pace, finding the space it creates in your thoughts. It could be a 24-hour break from screens, putting the devices away to remember your connection to yourself doesn't come through a phone. In each case, the action is small. The point is the conscious choice. You are not a victim of circumstance. You're the author of this small experiment. You're showing yourself in a tangible way that you are more than your comforts. That your peace isn't stored in the thermostat setting, the full pantry, the constant notifications. It's stored in the citadel, and you just prove the walls are still standing, even when you turn off the external heaters. So a simple proposal for the week ahead. Choose one small, daily comfort to voluntarily forego, just for a day or even a few hours. It could be your morning coffee, the second helping at dinner, the background noise during a chore. Choose something that feels like a minor anchor in your routine and let it go. Don't just skip it distractedly. Do it with intention. Pay attention to what happens inside. Notice the initial pull of habit, the little voice of complaint, and then notice what emerges on the other side of that feeling. Often it's a quiet sense of self-reliance, a subtle confidence, a proof written in your own nerves that you are okay, that your capacity to care, to be present, to be you, is not tied to that thing. That small proof changes everything. It turns detachment from a theory into a lived strength. Between a stimulus and your response, there's a space, and in that space is your freedom. The Stoics were masters of that. They called it the Discipline of Assent. It's the most practical, moment-to-moment form of the whole idea. You care deeply about protecting that space. And you let go of the automatic reactions that try to rush in and fill it. Epictetus started his entire handbook with this one rule. He wrote, "It's not events that disturb people, but their judgments about events." That's the core. The event itself is neutral. It just is. An email arrives, traffic forms, a plan gets cancelled. Those are facts. What happens next is everything. In that tiny, often invisible gap, we insert a judgment. We label the event. We call it bad, unfair, a catastrophe. Or we call it good, lucky, a sign. That judgment is the seed. It grows instantly into the full reaction. The anger, the anxiety, the elation. Detachment is the skill of stepping into that gap. And suspending that initial judgment. You don't let the event pass straight through to your nervous system unchallenged. You intercept it with a question. What is this really? So you get a critical email from a colleague. The event is pixels on a screen. The immediate, unattended judgment might be, this is an attack. They're undermining me. This is a disaster. That judgment, accepted without a pause, triggers a cascade. Your heart rate jumps, your face flushes. You start drafting a defensive reply in your head. You're in a state of conflict, all from an unchallenged thought. The Stoic practice is to create a pause, to see the email and consciously think, here is text. It contains words with a certain tone. That's all I know for certain right now. You care deeply about responding wisely, so you protect the space to do that. You let go of the compulsion to instantly label it a catastrophe. You examine the content with reason. Is there useful feedback here, buried in the delivery? Is this person under stress themselves? What's the most constructive way to address this? The event didn't change, but your relationship to it changed completely. Because you widened the gap. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly. He'd remind himself to strip away the story, see the thing for what it is in its own nature. A piece of criticism is just a vibration of air, a mark on a page. It has no power to harm your character unless you grant it that power by your judgment. By pausing, you take back that granting authority. This space is where your sovereignty lies. It's the inner citadel's gatehouse. Every external event has to pass through this checkpoint of your reason before it's allowed to affect you. So here's a simple practice. For the next 24 hours, try to catch yourself making an automatic negative judgment. You don't have to stop it, just notice it. The driver who merges too slowly, the comment from a family member that feels dismissive, the minor mistake you make at work, the moment you feel that familiar heat of irritation or a flush of embarrassment, pause. Even for half a second and silently acknowledge, I just inserted a judgment. I labeled that event as bad. See if you can identify the raw event, separate from the story you're telling about it. This isn't about suppressing feeling. It's about creating a sliver of awareness, and in that sliver, you'll find the first real taste of that freedom. The freedom to care about your next action without being a prisoner of your first reaction. You might be aiming at the wrong thing the whole time. Ambition and detachment feel like they pull in opposite directions. But the Stoic idea brings them together. It changes what the goal is. The goal isn't the trophy outside. It's how you go after it. You can be completely ambitious about acting with excellence. About courage and wisdom in your work. The promotion, the recognition, the money, those are just possible side effects. They're fine if they come, but they aren't where your worth comes from. This reframe lets you put in total effort, passionate effort, without that crushing weight of needing one specific outcome. Your ambition turns inward. Toward your own character. The outside world can't give you that, and it can't take it away. Marcus Aurelius ran the whole Roman Empire, and in his private notes he kept reminding himself. His job wasn't to be praised as emperor. His job was to do the work of a human being with justice, with integrity, with reason. The palace, the applause, the power, that was just the backdrop. The real work was the moral quality of his actions inside that backdrop. His ambition was for that inner work. The external title was almost beside the point. You can see the difference in two kinds of ambition. Take two entrepreneurs. The first is obsessed with becoming a billionaire. That's the target. Every decision goes through that filter. Valuation, exit strategies, public perception, that's how they measure success. That goal is completely external, and it's fragile. It depends on the market, on competitors, on public taste. If the billion-dollar valuation never comes, the whole thing feels like a failure, no matter what was learned, no matter what problems were solved. That person's worth is tied to a number they don't control. The second entrepreneur is obsessed with solving a real problem. Their ambition is to address it ethically, skillfully, completely. Their focus is on the quality of the product, on fair practices, on the growth of their team, on the value they give users. The financial success is something they hope comes from doing that inner work well. This goal is internal and it's robust. Even if the company stays small or even if it closes, the entrepreneur can look back and say, I acted with excellence. I built with integrity. I became a better problem solver, a better leader. That achievement can't be erased by a shift in the market. So here's a question for your own path. Think about a current project, a main goal in your life. Is your focus mostly on the external outcome, the specific title, the dollar amount, the public recognition? Or is it on the person you're becoming in the process, the skills you're honing, the virtues you're practicing, the quality of your effort? How could you start to shift the weight, even a little, from the first thing toward the second? Could you make the excellence of the endeavor itself the real target and let the results be what they are? The Stoics didn't view death as something morbid. They saw it as the most important deadline for living well. That practice is called Memento Mori. Remember, you must die. And it's the final, grounding layer of the whole paradox. That awareness of an end point does two powerful things at once. It forces you to care fiercely about the time you have. And it forces you to let go of the idea that anything here is permanent. It's the ultimate clarifier. When you hold the fact of your own finitude lightly in your mind, it doesn't create despair. It creates a brilliant focus. You stop wasting the precious resource that is your attention. Marcus Aurelius returned to this thought constantly. He didn't dwell on it with fear. He used it as a tool for perspective. He wrote to himself, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. He saw death as a natural process, as much a part of nature as a leaf falling from a tree. This wasn't a dark thought. It was a sobering truth. It stripped away pretense. Seneca approached it from the angle of time. He argued that life is long enough if you know how to use it. We act as if we have forever, so we postpone living. We exist, but we don't fully inhabit our days. The reminder of death, he taught, is what shocks us out of that postponement. It makes life long, not by adding years, but by filling the ones we have with intention. Think of how this works in a practical, daily sense. You're in a petty argument with a neighbor about a property line. It's consuming your thoughts. You feel righteous and irritated. Now, introduce the Memento Mori lens. Hold the quiet fact of your mortality in the back of your mind. Against that backdrop, how significant is this dispute? Does it deserve the energy of your one wild and precious life? Often, the answer is a clear no. The grip of the grievance loosens. You care more about your own peace and the limited days you have than about winning a trivial point. You let it go, or a positive example. You feel a surge of love for your partner, but you're busy. You think, I'll tell them later. The Memento Mori reminder whispers, later is not guaranteed. So you put down the phone, you look them in the eye, you say the kind thing now. The awareness of impermanence doesn't paralyze you with fear of loss. It propels you into expressions of love. It turns vague affection into concrete action. This reflection reshapes priorities on a grand scale, too. It's the nudge that makes someone finally start writing that book. Or mend a long broken friendship, or leave a soul-crushing job, to pursue work that feels meaningful, because the shadow of the end makes the cost of inaction unbearably clear. So here is the classic challenging prompt. If you knew for certain that you would die 1 year from today, what would you start doing differently? And just as importantly, what would you stop doing? The answers that come up aren't usually about acquiring more. They're almost always about connection. About creating, about being present, about shedding the burdens of resentment and pretense and fear. That's the clarifying power of the ultimate deadline. It teaches you what to care for with all your heart, and it shows you with gentle finality everything you can safely let go. Good news doesn't make you arrogant. Bad news doesn't make you despondent. The Stoics had a name for that. They called it the smooth flow of life, and it wasn't just an idea, it was a superpower. Something you trained for. Its name is equanimity. That's the result when you master the paradox, a steady, unwavering core of peace. It comes from learning to care deeply, but from a place of internal strength. And to let go of what you can't command. It's not about feeling nothing, it's about feeling everything, the joy, the grief, the excitement, the disappointment. But without letting any single emotion take over, without it becoming the ruler, your center of gravity stays with you, inside. Epictetus talked about this. He described the philosopher's progress as a journey toward not being harmed by events. The goal, he said, is to come through hardship not just unscathed, but better, like a wrestler who comes out of a match stronger, not just unbruised. The event itself is neutral. The harm only happens if we consent to it. With our judgments, so a wise person can't truly be harmed by fortune, because their good is held in their own choices, securely. Seneca wrote about this too. The evenness of a wise person's soul. He compared it to the deep sea. On the surface, storms rage, waves crash, winds howl, but far below there's a profound calm. The waters are still, undisturbed. The wise person experiences the surface storms, the daily irritations, the sudden losses, the unexpected windfalls. But their depths remain serene. Their peace isn't shaken because it isn't stored in the weather. It's anchored in the bedrock of their character. You can see the contrast. In daily life, take two people following the stock market. The first person ties their entire sense of security to their portfolio's value. Their self-worth is in the numbers. When the numbers are green, they're elated, expansive, making grand plans. When the numbers turn red, they're anxious, short-tempered, filled with dread. Their inner peace is on a roller coaster, jerked up and down by forces outside their control. Their mood is a slave to the ticker tape. The second person is also invested. They also care about their financial well-being. They make prudent plans, follow sound principles, but their core sense of worth is built on something else. Their integrity, their relationships, their commitment to learning. The market's daily swings are data points. They might prompt a calm review of strategy. But they don't dictate the person's inner weather. A market crash is a serious external event, but it's not an internal catastrophe. Their peace remains. Like Seneca's deep sea, they can engage with the problem from clarity, not panic. So here's a question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much does your inner peace fluctuate with daily events? Does a critical email from your boss send you to a 2? Does a compliment from a friend rocket you to an 8? If your peace is constantly chasing the highs and lows of the day's news, or your social media feed, or other people's opinions, then your center of gravity is outside yourself. Now imagine a steady 7, not a flat, bored neutrality, a resilient calm, A 7 means you receive good news with genuine joy, but without it inflating your ego. You receive bad news with sober attention, but without it collapsing your world. You feel the emotions, but you are not them. Your actions come from principle, not a reaction to a feeling. That steady 7 is the superpower. That's equanimity, the smooth flow of life, where you're no longer a passenger on the roller coaster. You're the calm observer in the center of the ride. The Stoics had this view of the universe. They saw it as a single, living organism, not a random accident. A whole thing, and your role in it is specific. It has a purpose. That's their cosmological idea, the logos, a rational principle, an intelligent principle. It orders everything. It connects everything from the galaxies down to a leaf turning toward the sun. It's all one coherent whole, and you are a conscious piece of that. That changes the whole idea of detachment. From here, letting go isn't about giving up. It's about surrendering your own small will to the intelligent flow of the larger order. Caring deeply becomes playing your unique part in that system. Playing it with excellence, with joy. You stop fighting the current. You learn to swim with it. Marcus Aurelius kept coming back to this. He wrote that what doesn't benefit the hive doesn't benefit the bee. He saw himself as a limb of a larger body. If the body needs the limb cut off for its health, then so be it. The limb's purpose was to serve the whole while it was attached. His own desires, his frustrations, his fears, they were just noise if they went against the rational harmony of the whole. He found peace not in getting his way, but in aligning his will with the way of nature itself. He wrote to accept everything that happens, even if it seems disagreeable, because it leads to the health of the universe. Think of a single cell in your body. That cell cares deeply. It performs its function with incredible specificity. It takes in nutrients. It expels waste. It communicates with its neighbors, all to sustain the life of the whole organism. It does this with a devoted focus, but it doesn't resent the body's overall needs. It doesn't throw a tantrum when it's time for it to die and be replaced. That's part of the body's natural renewal. It accepts its place in the cycle. Its letting go is built into its purpose. Its deep care is for the health of the whole, not its own permanent survival. Now bring that down to human scale. Your community, your family, your work, these are smaller expressions of that interconnected whole. Your current challenge, that difficult situation, might feel like an isolated problem. But through this Stoic lens, it could be part of a larger pattern of growth, not just for you, for the system you're part of. Say a project at work is failing despite your best efforts. The attached view sees only personal failure or unfairness. The cosmic, detached view might ask if this failure is clearing the way for a better approach, one that benefits the entire team, or if it's teaching resilience that will be crucial later for a larger challenge coming to the whole organization. Your job isn't to force a specific outcome. It's to play your part with integrity through the process, to learn, to adapt, to contribute your lessons to the group. Or a personal loss, the pain is real, it's deep. The cosmic view doesn't negate that grief, but it might frame it within the inevitable cycles of the whole. The giving and taking, the changing of forms that sustains the universe. Your role in that moment becomes honoring the connection, feeling the loss fully as a testament to that bond, and then continuing to contribute your love and presence to the living network around you. You are a point where the universe experiences itself, even in sorrow. So here's a thing to consider. Look at one current challenge in your life, not the smallest annoyance, something that feels significant and difficult. Now zoom out. How might this be part of a larger pattern, a necessary process of growth, not just for you, but for your family, your community, or just the unfolding story of your own character within the grand scheme? Can you see your role in this moment not as a victim of chaos, but as a participant in a vast, intelligent process? When you align your will with that view, detachment stops feeling like loss. It starts feeling like coming home. The Stoics had a system for this. It was a notebook, a nightly ritual, the evening review. You pause, you look back at the day through Stoic principles. Not just to remember, but to rewire. The practice asks 3 questions. You ask them with gentle honesty. First, what did I do well today? This isn't about ego. It's about affirming moments of virtuous care. Where did you act with courage or justice or wisdom? Where did you invest your effort fully in what was within your power? That question reinforces the caring deeply side. It celebrates the choices that align with your character. Second, what could I have done better? Here you notice the misapplications. Where did your care spill over into anxious attachment? Where did you try to control an uncontrollable outcome? Or maybe where did you care too little about your own actions, acting with laziness? This question isn't for self-flagellation. It's for clear-eyed diagnosis, seeing where the balance was off. Third, and this is the heart of it, what am I attached to that I should release? This is the active work of letting go. You identify the specific hook from the day, the lingering resentment from a comment, the white-knuckle grip on a future outcome. The disappointment over a plan that changed. You name it in writing. That begins the process of disentangling your peace from it. The most famous Stoic text, Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, wasn't a formal treatise. It was his personal journal, notes to himself, likely written as part of this evening practice. He was wrestling the principles onto the page, reminding himself of his own philosophy amid ruling an empire. He learned this from his teacher, who emphasized the daily examination of one's judgments. So take a common day. Your morning starts with a tense team meeting. A colleague dismisses your idea. You feel a hot flash of anger. You stay quiet, but you spend the next hour replaying the slight. Later, you check your investment portfolio obsessively, your mood dipping with each fractional change. In the evening, you snap at your partner over a minor household mess. Now, the journal. For what did I do well? You might write, I finished the project report with attention to detail. I listened when my partner needed to vent later. For what could I have done better? You could note, I let my colleague's comment dictate my inner peace for an hour. I attached my self-worth to the validation of my idea, and I transferred my financial anxiety onto my partner. For what should I release? Here you get specific. I release my attachment to my colleague's approval. I release my demand that the stock market behave a certain way today. I release the story that my partner's mess was a personal affront. This act of writing crystallizes the abstract. It moves the conflict from the swirling chaos of your mind to the stillness of the page, where you can see it clearly. You are not your thoughts. You are the observer who writes them down and decides what to do with them. So here's a direct challenge. Tonight, before bed, take out any notebook or a note on your phone. Ask yourself the 3 Stoic questions. Don't overcomplicate it. Write just one sentence for each. What did I do well? What could I have done better? What am I attached to that I should release? This 2-minute ritual is the loom. It's where you begin to weave the threads of deep care and complete release into the fabric of your days. You say my body, my mind, my life, but then you have to ask, who is this I that has these things? Can the owner actually be the thing that's owned? That's the last layer of the illusion. The belief that we're permanent owners of anything. Stoicism dismantles that. It says you're a custodian, a temporary steward, not a proprietor. Your body is on loan from nature. Your talents are a gift you didn't create. Your life is a brief assignment. To see that is to unlock a different relationship with everything, one of deep responsibility, but with zero anxiety about possession. You care for what's in your trust with full attention, but you hold it with an open hand, knowing it has to be returned. Epictetus put it perfectly. He said, remember you're an actor in a play. The play's character is set by the playwright. The director chooses if you get a long role or a short one. If he wants you to play a beggar, play that role well. If a cripple or a ruler or a private citizen, Your job is to act the assigned part well. The costume, the stage, the lines, those are given to you, they aren't yours. They belong to the production, to the whole. Your life is the role. Your body and your circumstances are the costume and the props. You don't own the theater. You perform in it for a time. That reframe changes how you care for things. Think of a musician with a gift for melody. The attached view says, "This talent is mine. It's my identity. My worth is tied to it." That creates a prison of ego and fear. Fear of losing the skill, jealousy of others, a constant need for validation to prove ownership. The custodian view is different. The gift of musicality arrived through a mix of genetics, opportunity, inspiration. The musician is its current vessel. Their duty isn't to boast of ownership, but to honor the gift, to develop it with discipline, to share it generously, to be a clear channel for something that flows through them but doesn't originate with them. If the gift fades with time, or if another vessel emerges with greater clarity, the custodian doesn't feel theft. They feel gratitude for the time they were entrusted with it. Apply this to your own life, to your career. You don't own your position. You're the current steward of its responsibilities. That means you care deeply about doing the work with integrity, adding value, guiding your team. But you let go of the idea that the title is your identity or that you're entitled to hold it forever. This mindset lets you lead without clinging, to innovate without fearing obsolescence. Apply it to relationships. You don't own your partner or your children. You're the temporary custodian of a sacred connection. Your duty is to love, protect, and nurture that bond while it's in your care. But you release the demand that they conform to your blueprint for their life. You honor their autonomy because they aren't your property. They're individual souls walking a shared path for a while. Even your own body, you're its caretaker, not its owner. You nourish it, rest it, challenge it, listen to its signals. You care for it with respect. But you release the frantic demand that it never age, never weaken, never change. You accept it as the temporary vehicle for your journey, not the journey itself. So here's an exercise. What do you most strongly feel you own? Is it your home? Your reputation, your intellectual property, your physical strength, your hard-earned career status? Take that one thing and hold it in your mind. Now try on the custodian's perspective. Think, I am not the owner of this, I am its current steward. I have been given it in trust for a time. My role is to care for it well and to pass it on or let it go when the time comes. How does that shift your feeling? Does the grip of anxiety loosen? Does a deeper, more peaceful sense of responsibility take its place? That space is where the paradox finally rests. In the humble, joyful work of tending a garden you know you will one day leave, the most compassionate people are often the most exhausted. You see suffering, and you see injustice, and you see need. And you want to help, so you pour yourself out. You pour until there's nothing left, just a hollow feeling and a quiet question, why bother if it never seems to end? This is where the paradox becomes social. Stoicism doesn't pull you away from the world. It shows you how to be in it, how to be a source of strength without being consumed by it. The aim is to become a limitless well, not a finite cup that empties with every act of care. This is the Stoic virtue of philanthropia, a rational love for humanity. Compassion rooted not in emotional entanglement, but in a clear-eyed recognition. A recognition of our shared nature. We help because it is right, because we are part of a common whole. Not to fix a feeling inside ourselves, not because we demand a specific result. The Stoic helps from a place of inner abundance, from that fortified citadel of peace. They see the need, they assess what is within their power to do, and they act fully, but they do not then internalize the suffering. They do not take the world's pain onto their own shoulders. That distinction is everything. Marcus Aurelius bore the weight of imperial duty. He constantly reminded himself of this. He wrote that to help others is a social duty. as natural as a vine producing grapes, but he also cautioned himself, do it without expectation. Help ungrudgingly, he said, do not expect them to thank you. Be like a vine that has produced grapes. It seeks nothing more once it has yielded its proper fruit. The helping is the fruit, the outcome, the gratitude, the success. That is not the vine's responsibility. It does what its nature requires, and then it lets go. Consider two healthcare workers in a demanding environment. The first internalizes every patient's pain. They feel each diagnosis as a personal blow. They carry the grief of families home with them. They lie awake at night replaying cases, haunted by the ones they couldn't save. Their compassion is deep and real, but it's fused with a demand that they should be able to heal everyone, that suffering shouldn't exist in their presence. This attachment to an impossible outcome leads directly to burnout, to emotional exhaustion, to a point where they can no longer help effectively. Their cup is perpetually empty. The second worker provides care that is just as skilled, just as empathetic. They listen deeply. They treat each person with dignity and kindness. They use all their knowledge to alleviate suffering. But they maintain a crucial boundary, a professional one and a philosophical one. They understand that their power lies in the quality of their attention. Their medical skill, their compassionate presence, the ultimate course of the illness, the patient's choices, the systemic factors, these are not within their sole control. They do their part with excellence and they release the rest. This doesn't make them cold, it makes them sustainable. They can return shift after shift, year after year. As a steady source of competent care, their well does not run dry because it is fed by a deeper spring, the knowledge that they are doing what is right, not what is all-powerful. So here is a reflective prompt for your own life. In your efforts to help others, in your family, your community, your profession, do you ever feel an undercurrent of resentment or exhaustion? Does it sometimes feel like a draining obligation rather than a free act of care? If so, pause and apply the dichotomy. In that situation, what was truly within your power? Was it your listening ear, your practical aid, your advocacy, your donation of time or skill? And what was outside it? The other person's reaction, the long-term outcome, the larger societal problem you can't single-handedly solve. Can you begin to separate the two, to pour your care completely into the first, list your actions while consciously releasing your grip on the second? This is how we serve the world without being broken by it, how we fight for justice without being poisoned by despair. It is the social dimension of the paradox, and perhaps its most necessary application. The deepest Stoics often have the easiest laugh. It seems counterintuitive. We imagine them as stern, unflinching. But true mastery of the paradox doesn't create a stone face. It creates a light heart. You care deeply about your actions, but you let go of the need for a perfect performance. That gives you space to see the inherent comedy in the human condition. A genuine, non-cynical humor becomes the natural fruit of that detachment. It's a sign you're no longer taking yourself so seriously, or life's little dramas. You're free to see the absurdity. This isn't about frivolity, it's about perspective. When you're not personally identified with every setback, not financially and emotionally invested in every single outcome, you can step back. From that slight distance, the whole frantic play of human life can look a bit funny. The posturing, the anxieties over things forgotten in a week, the intricate dances to avoid minor discomforts, seen from the view from above, it has a certain ironic charm. The historical Stoics themselves were known for their wit, not just their wisdom. Cato the Younger, famous for his unbending integrity, was also renowned for his sharp, dry humor in the Roman Senate. He'd disarm opponents with a well-timed joke. Seneca, in his letters, constantly used playful analogies, gentle irony to make his points. He didn't write grim lectures. He wrote engaging conversations, often poking fun at human folly, including his own, and Marcus Aurelius, in the quiet of his thoughts, advised himself to take that cosmic perspective. Look down, he wrote, on the endless flocks and ceremonies, the voyages, the bustling in the market. From that height, see how many are ignorant of one another. How brief life is. That view doesn't just inspire awe, it can inspire a gentle, compassionate chuckle at our shared, earnest busyness. You see this in practice with small embarrassments. Imagine you're giving a presentation, you're fully prepared, you care about delivering value. Midway through, you mispronounce a key term in a ridiculous way. The attached, identified reaction is a wave of hot shame. Your inner critic screams. You believe this moment defines you as incompetent. The rest of the talk is agony, colored by that one slip. The person who practices detachment cares just as much about the presentation's value, but they are not fused with the performance. When the silly mistake happens, they might pause. Acknowledge it with a smile, maybe make a light comment to the room. They see the event for what it is, a minor verbal trip, a tiny blip in the flow of communication. They can laugh at it, learn from it, and move on. Their credibility is often enhanced by their ease, not damaged by the error. The mistake happened in the world of external events. Their peace and self-regard remained safe in the Citadel. The ability to laugh is proof the Citadel held. So think of a recent, minor embarrassment, a spill on your shirt before a meeting. Calling someone by the wrong name, sending an email with a glaring typo. Can you, right now, find a way to laugh at it? Not in a mean way toward yourself, but with the gentle humor of seeing a tiny, fleeting event in the vast, flowing river of your life. That laughter isn't dismissive, it's liberating. It's the sound of a weight being set down. It's the audible sign that you are living the balance, caring enough to show up, and letting go enough to enjoy the ride. Bumps and all, Stoicism isn't about reaching some mountain peak of perfect calm. It's about the walk, the quality of your walk every day. The paradox isn't a finish line. It's the path you're on. The ancient Stoics had a word for the person on that path. They called them a Prokopton, a progressor, someone making headway. And that label tells you everything. You're not a sage, you're not a master, you're a student always. That's the point. The whole practice asks you to care deeply about showing up for the walk, and to let go completely of the demand to have already finished it. That's the final twist. You have to apply the paradox to the practice itself. You care about the effort, and you let go of the need for flawless execution. Epictetus put this with real humility. He said his school, his lectures, were like a hospital. Students shouldn't leave feeling pleased. They should leave feeling treated, because they were patients, coming in with the sickness of mistaken judgments. He was a fellow patient further along in recovery. Not a doctor who'd never been ill. The work happens in the clinic, not after you're discharged. The stumbles, the setbacks, the days you forget the principles entirely. Those aren't signs you're failing. They're the symptoms you're there to treat. They're part of the curriculum. Think of learning an instrument. You care deeply about your daily practice. You sit with it, you work through the scales, you struggle with a difficult passage. That caring is your commitment. But if you berate yourself for every wrong note, if you demand a perfect performance from day 3, you'll quit. You'll crush the joy. The skillful learner hears the wrong note, notes it calmly, and tries again. The mistake isn't a personal indictment, it's information. It's the raw material for the next attempt. Your worth isn't in playing perfectly now, it's in the faithful return to practice tomorrow. This applies directly to your Stoic journey. You resolve to practice the view from above during a conflict. In the heat of the moment, you forget completely. You get angry. You say something you regret. The old response is a wave of self-criticism. I'm terrible at this. This philosophy doesn't work. I'll never get it right. That's the demand for perfection, punishing you for being a patient in the clinic. The progressor's response is different. Later, in the quiet, you review. You see where you lost the gap between stimulus and response. You care enough to examine it, to learn from it, and then you let go of the self-flagellation. You acknowledge, I am learning. Today I stumbled. Tomorrow I will try again with this new insight. That's progress. That's the walk. So here's a gentle question. Where in your own practice are you being too hard on yourself for not getting it right? Is it in your meditation when your mind wanders? Is it when you feel a surge of anxiety about the future, despite knowing the dichotomy of control? Is it when you grasp for a possession or an outcome you know you should release? Can you identify that inner critic, that voice demanding instant mastery? And then, can you perform the ultimate act of the paradox? Can you care deeply about the intention to grow and let go completely of the demand for perfect, immediate results? Can you replace that criticism with a simple, quiet commitment? The commitment to simply try again tomorrow, to walk the path, not to judge how far you are from a mythical peak. The walk itself, with all its stumbles and recoveries, is where the freedom lies. We've looked at a lot of separate ideas, but they aren't separate. They're all just parts of the same thing. They all point toward that central paradox, putting all your care in one place and letting go of everything else. The dichotomy of control gives you the basic map. It shows you what's yours, your actions, your judgments, your character, and what isn't outcomes, events, what other people do. That's the starting clarity. Virtue is what you build on your side of that line. That's where you put your deep care, wisdom, courage, justice, temperance. You cultivate those in your own actions, no matter what's happening over there. Amor, Fati, and the discipline of desire, they show you how to face the other side, how to meet the external flow not with resistance, but with acceptance. Even a kind of love for it, for the raw material it gives you to practice your virtue. That's the active side of letting go, and the present moment is the only place any of this happens. It's the only workshop. You can't care for your character in the past. You can't release an attachment that's in the future. The work is only right now. Marcus Aurelius put it together. He wrote about accepting what fate binds you to, and loving the people fate brings you together with, but doing it with all your heart. There it is, accepting the external flow, and then engaging with your role in it wholeheartedly, virtuously. Duty and acceptance woven together. Take that first example. The job interview, you can see all the threads there. The dichotomy of control clarifies the task. Your preparation, your mindset, your conduct in the room, those are yours. The final decision, the interviewer's mood, the other candidates, those aren't. Virtue directs your care. You focus on acting with courage by being authentic, with justice by respecting their time, with wisdom by preparing well. Your goal becomes expressing those qualities, not just getting the offer. Amor Fati shapes your attitude. You embrace the whole process, the nervousness too, as the material you need to practice your character. You might even feel grateful for the chance to test your poise under pressure. The present moment is your anchor. During the interview, your care is on listening, responding, being there, not on rehearsing your next answer or worrying about an email next week. And the reserve clause is your silent mantra. I will do my best in this interview, fate permitting. You commit completely to the performance, but you hold the result with an open hand. That's the tapestry. It's not a checklist. It's one integrated way of being, a way that gives you power over your inner life and peace about the outer one. This isn't a contradiction, it's a harmony. It makes sense of the tension. Finally, you get the freedom to really engage with life from one shift, a simple one. You put your deepest care where it has power, in your character, your judgments, what you do, and then you release your grip gracefully on everything else. The outcomes, the past and the future, the opinions, the possessions, the events you were never meant to command. That's the balance. That's how you get a resilience that doesn't break, a peace that doesn't waver, an effectiveness that isn't poisoned by anxiety. Centuries ago, a former slave named Epictetus defined this freedom. He said it with piercing clarity. He said, "Freedom is not achieved by satisfying desire, but by eliminating it. Not the desire to live well, the desire to control what isn't ours. When you stop demanding that life conform to your script, you're free. Free to act within it with purpose and with joy." And the Emperor Marcus Aurelius, from the height of his power, he sought the same quiet center. He wrote this down. He wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart." There it is. The complete acceptance of what is, and then the wholehearted engagement with your role within it, caring and letting go. They're woven together, a single, seamless motion. This journey, it isn't about becoming someone else. It's about returning to your own sovereignty, to that inner citadel, the one that's always been there, waiting for you to occupy it fully. Imagine bringing this balance into your daily world. A difficult conversation becomes an exercise in courage and listening, not a battle to win. A creative project becomes a practice of devotion to the craft, not a desperate gamble for validation. The love you offer becomes a gift without strings, not a transaction with hidden demands. Your life becomes less about weathering storms and more about learning to sail, using the wind and the waves, whatever their direction, to navigate toward the person you choose to be. So as we close, here's a question to carry. Not as homework, as a gentle compass. Which one area of your life most needs this balance right now? This balance of care and release. Is it a relationship where you're holding on too tight? A goal where you've confused your effort with your worth? A regret or a worry that's been renting space in your mind for far too long? That single area is your practice ground. You can start there.